Hey guys, what's going on? Shep here at Iron Anchor Cycles, and well, I guess we got some updating to do for everybody because, well, we took a little bit of a break again after I said we weren't going to, but here we are trying to get back in the swing of things. So we are in, I guess, the second week in November right now. I guess it's still 2023, and hopefully you can see we've got quite a bit going on here in the shop. We've got a bunch of bikes that we've got in to work on and hopefully make some new videos on. And I'm excited to get back to making some videos for all of you guys. It's been a bit of a crazy year, as you know, I'm sure if you follow us on Instagram or seen some of the little bits of video stuff we've done, we moved and this is our new shop. If you want to see a little bit of a tour of it, you can check out the last video we did. That giveaway bike we were doing is long gone, so nothing to look at there in terms of that. But yeah, we will probably do another more detailed shop tour video to kind of, I don't know, show you guys, what we've built and why we did it, and maybe get into a little bit more specifics about some of the stuff that we, use every day, and I don't know, maybe some little tips and tricks, we'll see. But in any event, what I wanted to do is kind of get back into what the channel is really about, which is some of the project bikes that we work on. And I don't know if you can see over my right shoulder in the back there is a bike that was a bit of a fan favorite, certainly one of our favorites. It's a 35th anniversary Super Glide that we had in last year to do a whole bunch of upgrades on. We've had it back since then to do some little things. We've got it back one more time now to do one final step, which the customer has certainly been waiting a long time on. I've been waiting a long time on, and hopefully you all have as well, which is to get those short shots off of there and get a proper pipe on the bike. But we can't leave well enough alone if we're gonna take the pipe off, and we've already done all these other upgrades. Got to do at least a little bit of upgrading to that motor and get it on the dyno. So that's what we're gonna get started on right now. Gonna do a little disassembly on it, get some parts off, and we'll start getting into that motor. And I don't know, I don't think we've done a twin cam motor or cam install video in the last, I don't know, little while anyway, at least on the camera. So maybe we'll get into that a little bit, show you guys some of the stuff that we got going on, and we'll get some cams installed. We're gonna take the top end apart as well to replace a leaky seal, get a new pipe on, and get that on the dyno. So stick around, and we're gonna turn some wrenches. All right, so here's the bike. We're gonna get tearing into it. But before we do that, just a little recap on kind of where we left off in this since the last time it was on our lift. Obviously, this is a 35th anniversary Super Glide, made to look like the original FX model. It had the boat tail rear fender. Super cool bike that didn't sell very well in its day, but certainly very collectible now. But anyway, on to more pressing matters. Some of the upgrades we've already done on the bike. Obviously, the most notable thing is probably the wheels. So we've got an 1819 Arlen Ness Y-spoke combo here with chrome PM calipers front and rear. The front has a dual disc conversion, so we got two calipers there. The rotors are from Lindell, along with a sprocket from Lindell as well. That's kind of the wheels and tires. Obviously, we've got the Öhlins 764 LE piggybacks on here. Cleaned up the rear tail section a little bit. Got an aftermarket seat on here, obviously. Bunch of stuff up here. Most of this is from, I don't know where most of this is from. Big Al's, I think. Yeah, Big Al risers and maybe their bars. I don't know. Whole bunch of chrome stuff. The bike looks great. Only last sort of thing that's got to come off here aesthetically is these guys. They sound pretty cool, I guess, but I think this bike is just begging for a chrome thunderheader, so that's what we're gonna do. But like I said, got to get in here and give it a little bit more juice before we put that pipe on it. So I'm gonna start getting started with some disassembly. Like I mentioned before, normally the way we would do this is we would cut the push rods out and we'd leave the top end intact. Well, it's got a leaky lower rocker seal on the rear. So we're gonna take this opportunity to change the gaskets front and rear on the rocker boxes. So as long as we have the rocker boxes open, we can just pull the push rods out and we don't have to cut them. So kind of kill two birds with one stone there, save the customer a little bit money on not needing the adjustable push rods since we have to go into the top end anyway. So a little bit more labor involved in it, which is why most of the time we opt for the adjustable push rods. So tank's got to come off in order to get these rockers off. So we're gonna get that fuel drained, get the tank off, seat off, start stripping some parts, and we'll kind of check back in when we're at a place where, I don't know, maybe it'll be interesting to talk about what's next. So stick around. All right, so made it a little bit less far into the disassembly than I was hoping without hitting a little bit of a stopping point, but I think these stopping points are maybe a little bit helpful when you can kind of see when things don't always go as they're supposed to go. So we were just taking the exhaust off and found that the front nut on the flange, the one all the way forward on the front cylinder, was pretty tight. Managed to get it to come loose and come off, but what happened, as can happen particularly on these front cylinders, is the stud came out with the nut. Now, looking at this, and hopefully this will zoom in here a little bit, it's quite rusty. It's probably not worth trying to salvage this when it's just as easy to go ahead and just take a new stud and install it. So what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and replace both the studs in that front cylinder, just because they're both exposed to the same weather and oxidation and corrosion and all that, and we've got two studs and it's no big deal to pull the other one out and put two fresh ones in. Looking at the rear ones, not really any reason to replace these, I don't think. We'll clean the threads up and just make sure they're good, but otherwise the rears are fine, but we're gonna do the front two as a pair. So what I've done here is I've got our stud removal tool actually already on this stud. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull this out. And I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, probably not here, but there are a number of ways to get these studs in and out. Some of them may be a little bit better than others. In our case, we're using a stud remover, and then we'll use the complementing stud installer, which makes it pretty easy to do. Although, if you're careful with it, and you know, you could probably just do it with two nuts. You won't get quite as tight a connection, if you will, just doing it that way. But it's possible if you don't have a stud installer or remover. So let me just finish getting this out, and then I'll show it to you. Okay, so there is our stud removed with the removal tool, and then to get this tool off, I just need to unlock the tapered collet here. And with that unlocked, we can remove the stud from the tool. There you go. So this one's actually not really in terrible shape. I mean, it's a little rusty, but no big deal to just do them as a pair. So if you're curious, this is a tool from Snap-on. I don't know what the part number is, but basically what makes this better than just two nuts is it's tapered here. So when this bigger nut locks down onto this smaller side, it's gonna clamp down on that taper and not allow it to spin. So you don't need to, like you would with two nuts, get them like crazy mega tight on each other. This will do the job a lot easier because you've got mechanical advantage working for you. So the next step here is I'm just going to clean these holes out a little bit, but I'll show you the installer side of the tool. So basically what you've got here is it's basically a big long, it's a big long nut, but it's got a ball bearing in there, and then it's got a little set screw in the top. So what's going to happen is you're going to thread in the stud. It's going to tighten down automatically against that ball bearing. As you go to start to turn this in, it's going to tighten. And then, in order to get this out without taking the stud out, all you have to do is loosen the set screw on the top. It'll release the tension off that ball bearing, and then the tool will slide off the stud. So pretty cool, pretty neat little idea. Not a tool we use all the time, but definitely really helpful when we do. So like I said, I'm just gonna clean these threads out a little bit. We're gonna get some red Loctite on these studs, and I'm gonna get them installed. So with the stud fully tightened down, go ahead and break loose the tension with the set screw here. And now the stud removal tool, or I'm sorry, the stud installer will just spin back off the stud. All right. So we got our stud in. Just get a closer look at it. Looks good to me. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is just repeat the process on this one. And this one's actually a little bit more visible, so maybe I'll just zoom the camera in and you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so here you can see the stud we just installed, and then down here you can see the stud that is yet to be installed. So there's the stud with the tool installed on it. I'm gonna stick this in here, get it started. All right, and just gonna turn it in now. This one I can't get a ratchet on because the frame is in the way, but a wrench will work. It's just gonna take a little while. Actually, I bet if I do it from this side, get it to go a little faster. There we go. Tool comes out. All right. So we've got both of our new studs installed. Got a little bit of excess Loctite there. Just gonna wipe that away and continue with this disassembly. One of the many reasons I hate this stock exhaust bracket, and we are definitely going to try and take it off, is because of exactly what happened. It directs the oil kind of all over the place. Even with a drain pan, we still make a giant mess. So yeah, I could have put one of my little funnel-y guys in there and probably would have helped mitigate that a little bit, but one, I wasn't really thinking about it, and two, I don't think it would have helped that much. So what I'm going to do now is clean up this mess and hopefully be able to pretty easily remove this bracket. Not critical to get done right at this second, but I'm thinking about it, it's annoying me, and I kind of want to deal with it. Honestly, it probably would have been better just to do it before I took the cam cover off, but again, wasn't really thinking about it. So, like I said, I'm gonna clean up here, get rid of this old gasket. I'm gonna get cleaned up here. I'm not gonna show you cleaning this up or taking this off. I know I've done it before on another bike. I can't remember which one it was. This thing's a pain in the ass to take off. This is the stock exhaust bracket, which is why 90% of people just leave it there when they take the stock pipes off and put something else on. I always try to take them off. This bike might be a little bit difficult because there's definitely some corrosion on a lot of these fasteners. I think this bike lived a little bit of a hard life in its first iteration of life before the current owner bought it. He's obviously taken really good care of it since then. But those little torque screws that hold this in, they each require a different driver to take out. One you need an extension, one you need a real short one, I can't remember exactly what they are, but there are a couple of very specific like Torx adapters you need in order to be able to get to all three of those. There's one that's the most difficult, is one that sits right above the frame rail. There's almost no clearance to get a Torx in there. So we've got the right tools to do it, and it's, like I said, it's not the end of the world on a bike that's not corroded, but we're gonna do the best we can here. And truthfully, even if we break one of those little T27s, it doesn't really matter because we'll definitely be able to get it out once it's broken and we can grab onto it with like a vice grip or something. But also the bracket will come off if the screw breaks. So that's kind of the idea. But we'll obviously get it cleaned up and fixed after we take it off if it does break. So enough of that. Let me get cleaned up here and get to taking this off, and then we'll get back to it. Got that bracket off, and not sure what I was worried about. That was actually one of the easiest ones to get off I've ever done. Still used 2, maybe 3 different wrenches to do it, but all the bolts came right out. Super, super simple. So got that cleaned up. Not gonna spill any more oil, and it'll look a little nicer if you're looking at those details, you know, somebody's looking at the bike. So I just went over to the other side and pulled the spark plugs and put the bike into 6th gear so we can get this motor rotated around. And what I'm gonna do here is line up the timing marks on the cam and pinion sprockets. Doesn't really want to stay there. Well, it's close enough for right now. We'll readjust that. But anyway, the reason I'm doing that is we want to get our rear cylinder or front cylinder, whichever one you want to do first, get it onto top dead center, take the pressure off the push rods so that we can pull these out. Like I said at the beginning of the video, in this case, that's why the tank is off. We are taking the rocker boxes off and removing the push rods out the top. We're going to reuse the push rods. Normally we don't do that because it's a bunch of extra labor and the adjustable push rods just go in and out. Without doing that, you spend a little more money on the part once, but then you've got them forever. And anytime you have to go back in here, you never have to take the top end off. So in this case, we've got a leaking rocker seal that's kind of been dripping down on the rear cylinder here. So we're going to replace rocker gaskets front and rear, and that's why we're doing it this way. So to get those push rods out, part of the procedure there is obviously to take the tension off of them when you go to remove the rocker arm support plate. So as I get these taken off up top, just want to be pretty close to where we need to be to get the tension off. So anyway, enough said there. I'm going to go ahead and start removing these outer rocker covers and then just keep rolling along here. All right, so we've got our upper rocker covers off, got our push rods spinning free on the rear cylinder here. So I am going to start to disassemble the rockers here. Then we'll turn the motor and we'll do the front and we'll get all this done. A little note, not all of this would need to be done, even if you weren't, even if you wanted to go this route to do cams. You're going to have to take, obviously, the rocker supports out. The lower rocker box covers would not need to come off in order to do that. But obviously, we're taking them off because that's where our leak is from this lower rocker seal between the head and the lower rocker. So we're going to take all this stuff off, all new O-rings, seals, all that good stuff, clean out the breathers, get everything nice and fresh. So I'm going to grab a couple more wrenches and start getting these breathers taken out, and then we'll move on to rocker assemblies, rear and front. All right, so with the rocker support removed, obviously we've got our push rods here. Just pull them up, take them out. There's gonna be some oil in there that's gonna spill all over the place, so we're gonna do our best to catch it with a rag and keep track of where each of these came from so they can go back in the spots they came out of. All right, so with this side down to here, go ahead, do the same thing on the front. Just gonna go ahead and spin the motor over, confirm that we've got our cam on the base circle, and we'll keep going. All right, with all that stuff out of the way, down to just the lower rockers, which is kind of what we came here for, at least on the rear. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt these. We'll be down to just the heads, and Then I think after that, we will maybe just continue with disassembly. We'll get these lifter covers off, get the cam, all this stuff out. We'll get all the disassembly done, and then we'll start doing reassembly, working our way sort of in the reverse order that we took it all apart. So grab some wrenches and let's get these things off. All right, well, a little bit hard to see the evidence of the leak, but I could sort of feel it as I was pulling it off. Where it was leaking was right here, and you can see, you know, this coming apart is not necessarily an indication of a leak, but it was really not stuck right here. It was stuck to the head on this part, and it's obviously stuck to the cover over here, but right here, it seemed like there was kind of nothing happening, and you got oil kind of all around here. So it seems like this is where the seal failed. And if you look at the engine side, well, you can definitely see the evidence of the leak over here. So put this aside, we'll keep moving. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take these off. And like I said, I have had some really easy to get out bolts on this bike, and then some that have been pretty corroded. So one of the ones that, you know, you gotta be careful about is these tappet screws. It's not quite as bad as it can be on the M8s, those internal screws that hold the alignment cuffs in place. Those are real bad news if you break one. But I just want to be really careful with these, and we'll do what we got to do to get them out. Reminds me of another comment on a video from recently I just read. Somebody said they're not going to watch any more of my videos because I refer to bolts as screws. I thought that was a pretty funny one. And if you're still watching, I'm sorry, man. Definitely go watch somebody else if that's your reasoning. So for what it's worth, these little bolts right here are called cap screws. So I don't know what to tell you, man. If you don't like it, I guess you got to find another channel. So anyway, moving on, we're going to unbolt these screws from the tappet covers here and keep going with the disassembly. All right, so those did not feel as bad as some I've felt. They did not feel great either. So we're just gonna continue to be real careful in taking these off, because better spend a little bit more time taking these off nicely now than to run into a much bigger problem if we break one. All right, so that one is no big deal. This one in the back here can sometimes be a problem because, number one, I really don't like using ball and Allen wrenches or Allen drivers like this on things that are tight because they have a tendency to cam out and slip. So you're better off with something like a universal or something like that. But on these twin cams, this back screw, even with the universal on here like this, you can wind up hitting the motor and kind of, you know, nicking it up there, and obviously you don't want to do that. So that one can sometimes be a pain in the ass, but the rest of these are pretty easy to get to. All right, that one feels pretty good. No drama there. Let's go here. That was pretty good too. All right, and then here's what I was talking about. Much better off using a little universal than the ball end socket if you can help it. Ooh, and this one's tight. It's going, but this one's tight. Definitely. There we go. Now we're feeling good. There's definitely some good corrosion there. And actually, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but even this head of this screw here is pretty much white from corrosion. Or oxidation, I guess, would be the appropriate term there. All right. We got 4 out there. Let's jump over to the front. And maybe we'll start with the inside rear. All right, that one's no big deal. All told, these are not bad. Oops. In the oil. In the oil. And who knows, maybe we get another break here. I love how that feels. Maybe we can get this in there. Nope. All right, try and turn this a little bit more with the Allen key. Just want to get it a little looser before I stick the ball end socket in there. All right, see what we got. Beautiful. Got those 4 screws out, or I should say 8, I guess, 2 or 4 on each, and got the rubber persuader here, and just gonna knock these and break those gaskets loose and get these off. These are, like, everything on here has been, I mean, you normally have to, break them loose, but these are mega, mega, mega glued on here. Just a lot of time sitting and holding, I guess. Well, sometimes they don't want to come off. Now, you really don't want to be prying on this thing, but you might have to. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Just going to be real careful about it. Now, usually you can find one side where the cover hangs over just a little bit, like right there. And we are going to do this without scratching anything. There we go. All right. See? Bueno. Anti-rotation pins, front and rear. And we're going to start pulling these lifters out. Now, we are definitely not reusing these. We've got some S&S lifters, I believe, to go in here. Doesn't mean we're not going to look at these, just to get an idea of what everything's been doing in the motor. And before I get everything else cleaned, I should mention, I will look at all that stuff too. Push rods, wear on those, whatever. Not necessarily doing it as I remove it one piece at a time, but definitely everything will be looked at to make sure that we don't miss any current or potential issues. So I'm going to start pulling these out, and this sort of makes a mess. So I might just breeze through getting them out and then look at them over on the cart. But nevertheless, we will look at them. This one's got a A little bit of wear on it, no big deal. That one has got, it's not great. I can't feel it with my fingernail, but definitely sort of got one sort of unique line or stripe kind of going around in one spot. Be interesting to see what the cam looks like right there. Yeah, it looks pretty perfect. And it's got a similar line to the exhaust lifter on the rear. Not quite as dark. Definitely can't feel that one either, but interesting of note. All right, so with that taken care of, we can start to pull our cam chest out. For what it's worth, I mean, if you're looking for a cam install video, this probably isn't it. We've got a bunch that are way more detailed than this, but just make a couple of notes. The whole point of all of this and why we did all this first is you've got the cams in here that the lifters are sitting on, and if you pull all this out, the lifters are gonna fall out the bottom, and number one, you don't want them smacking around inside the motor, even if you're not gonna reuse them. Number two, they can't go back in the top without taking all this stuff off. They won't go up from the bottom. Well, they will, but you can't put them in properly that way. They gotta come in from the top and sit on the cams, so you gotta take all this stuff off. If you're not taking the lifters out, you can use a little hold-up tool. I got a bunch of different versions of them. You can hold the lifters from up top through the tappet block so they don't fall down, and you can take this all out. But if you're servicing all this stuff anyway and changing out parts, you're gonna take them out one way or the other, so you might as well take them out first. But that's the order of operations there, lifters out, then all this, so they don't fall through. Anyway, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and start tackling this stuff now. So we gotta get the chain tensioner off and our two bolts here, and then we can start pulling the rest of it. So grab a wrench here. Oops. Ooh, that is really tight. I do not like that. I do not like that. Ooh, got it. Just goes to show you, all these little fasteners, you got to be careful. That's all I can say. Be careful. Got our sprockets and chain out of the way, and now we are gonna get this cam plate out. So what I'm gonna do here is I am not gonna follow the rules here. I'm not gonna unscrew the oil pump screws because I want the oil pump to just come out with the cam plate. None of this stuff's getting reinstalled, so if I just leave them together, it's one less thing to keep track of. So everything's gonna come out all together. Cams, that whole assembly, obviously, will come out with the plate, oil pump, everything all in one good shot. All right, so if you're someone who watches this channel regularly, this should be a pretty familiar sight to see. Our empty cam chest ready to go. Went through and kind of looked a little bit through here. Don't see anything out of the ordinary. We've got our original caged sort of split roller bearings in here. We'll obviously replace that with the full bearings, but just, you know, further evidence that probably, you know, nobody's done anything in here before us. Otherwise, Hopefully they would have changed these. But in any event, before we go any further, what I want to do is get our runout tester on here and get a sense of where we're at with this pinion shaft. So I'm just going to go ahead and, while we're here, just get these old O-rings out of the way. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right. And then put our plate on here. There we go. Get these screws started. All right, so I'm gonna start turning this rear wheel and find our lowest point, get that set at 0, and see what we got. Ooh, this looks pretty good. Looks like we've got, wow. So that's 1, 2, we are under 2 thousandths on the run out here. We're looking really good. And it looks like just about 1.5. Yep. So that's our lowest point there, or highest point, I guess I should say. So that is a beautiful, beautiful crank that we've got in here. So that is fantastic news, and so we are free to keep rolling along here and keep going with what we got to do. So I'm gonna get this out of the way. Just wipe a little of this oil off here. We have to start putting some stuff away here. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to check out our lifter bores here. So we've got the go, no go precision ground balls here from fueling. If I can get the last one out, there we go. So basically what we're trying to figure out here is what the bore is on these lifters. Number one, hopefully they're all the same. And number two, hopefully they are standard size and we're not looking to go with oversized lifters. So what I want to do here is we got 30, 40. What size are you? 30, 35, 40. 45, 50. All right, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna start with the biggest to the smallest. So 50 was too big. What size are you? 45, also too big. That should be 40, also too big. And that looks like the one right there. So let's just check. So that's a 35. What I want to do is just make sure that that 40 is going to be too big all the way around, which definitely is. Well, actually, seems like it might just want to fit in that rear one there. So looks like that is sliding through on the rear ones. And not, whoop, well, looks like it fits there on that front one too. Just this one, I wonder if it will fit through there. That does fit. And these got some oil on them, so we're not, you know, fucking things up here. But I'm curious if we just put a little bit more in here. Yeah. It's a little tight at the bottom there. but it really definitely does fit in all these other ones. So what we're going to want to do here is, this number all by itself is fairly meaningless. What matters is the difference between the size of the bore and the size of the lifters. So we're going to measure all of our lifters, and presumably they won't all be exactly the same. I mean, what we're talking about here between this ball, which is, this is 0.8440, and the next size down is 0.8435. So that is 5, not thousandths, whatever's next, you know what I'm saying there. So that is a 1/2 of a thousandth difference between these, right? So we'll be able to hopefully find the right lifter. We'll put the lifter that's the smallest in here, and then, but hopefully that we're in spec, and we'll go over that when we get the lifters out. We'll mic them. I'll show you what I'm talking about. But in any event, we know where we're at. That this one right here is probably 35, and then the rest of these are 40. So we'll keep that in mind. I'm going to make a note of that to myself right now. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to clean some stuff up here, and then we'll go over to the workbench and we'll look at getting the new cams set up on the new cam plate and start to get some of those parts back installed down here. All right, so we're going to go a little out of order from what I talked about, just because I want to show you some of these steps here before I get too far ahead. So what I did here was I took our lifters we were planning on using. These are S&S precision lifters, got them all cleaned up, got all the packing oil and all that stuff, all of them. But before we get them into the vacuum bath to get all the air out of them and get them bled up, what I want to do is check their diameter. So I've got our micrometer here, and basically what I want to do is, the first thing is I'm going to measure one or both of these balls just to make sure that everything matches up. So this should still be calibrated. These are precision grounds. So if I take these and measure them, this is the 8440 ball. Let's see what we got here. All right. I don't know if you can read that. Hopefully you can. Exactly on the money. All right. So optimally, we want between 1 and 2 thousandths of clearance between the lifter and the bore. Ideally closer to 1 to 1.5 thousandths. So I'm gonna measure these here, and remembering that we said we had 3 of them that were 8440, and then one that ball kind of didn't want to fit through, but the 8435 ball was pretty loose, so it's probably somewhere in between, or maybe not perfectly round is maybe more than likely the case. But in any event, I'm going to measure each of these in a couple of places and see what we got. Now, those bores are slightly larger than what you would find in a brand new, or what you'd hope to find in a brand new scenario, but they're not terribly big. So let's see what we got here. So 8.422. I keep putting the point in the wrong spot. I say that 0.8422. Eight, 4, 2, 3. 8423. So let's say that's our number. Let's say 8423 is the number. If you have 8440 and you have as your bore, and 8423 as your lifter, you're going to subtract the smaller number from the bigger number there, and the difference you're going to get is 1.7 thousandths. So that's not bad. So that would be 17 would be the number, right? So that's 1.7 thousandths. It's not bad, it's slightly big. And by slightly big, I'm talking 0.2 thousandths big. I'd be comfortable with that. Here we go, 0.8424. So that would be 16, that's even closer. So I'm gonna call that one good. All right, 8422. 8424. Hmm. 8421. So still under 2 thousandths on that one. That one is a little bit smaller. Put that one aside. That might be the one we want to use in that smallest bore. 8421. 8421. 8420. 8420. 8423. A little bit better there. So part of the variation here is obviously, you grab it in different spots and, nothing is absolutely perfect, but seems like 8420 is probably about what these are supposed to be, is what I'm guessing. So that's kind of another smaller one. Eight, 4, 2, 1. 8420. 8420. 8423. 8420. 21. 20. All right. So at worst, we've got 2 thousandths of clearance, which is, like I said, probably about a half a thou more than ideal, but still, I think, totally fine. We could probably go one size oversize on these, but you definitely don't want these things to be too tight. That is for absolutely sure. That perfect amount of tolerance is your ideal scenario, right? So it's tight enough that you're not getting any oil slipping by, you're able to maintain oil pressure, particularly at idle, but you are not tight in the bore, and tight is always bad. Tight is bad in everything having to do with the motor. So I'm gonna run these, and I think it's gonna be more than fine. We're gonna get them bled down and or bled up, I don't know. But one way or the other, I'm gonna put them in the oil and get the vacuum bleeder going on it so that we can start doing, actually before we even go over to the other workbench, or maybe this one, I don't know, and do the cam stuff, I'm gonna do the bearings inside the case there. So I'll get these going, grab the bearing tool, grab the new bearings, and we'll get those going. So one thing I probably should have mentioned before, and I don't think that I did, but if you were paying attention at all, you probably saw that what came out of here was a late style hydraulic chain tensioner setup. So this is a unique bike. This is a 2006 Dyna. So if you kind of pay attention to twin cam parts, you'll see that the fitment for a lot of things is 07 and up twin cams, except Dynas, it's 06 and up. And the reason for that is that in 2006, even though the Dyna still had the 88-inch motor, it got the upgraded oiling system a year before all the other bikes did. So what you have is a kind of unique scenario where you have an 88-inch motor, but with the 96-inch style cam chests. So inner cam bearings, hydraulic tensioners, the plate setup for the hydraulic tensioners, the different chains, all that good stuff. So It's just a little call out, a little note. This is just one of those sort of unicorn bikes. There's a million of them for different things. You know, new bikes with old parts, old bikes with new parts. Harley does weird stuff all the time. But anyway, so all the stuff we are doing on this, although it's a 2006, this is the 2007 and up style of cam chest for any other model other than a dyno. Anyway, I'm sure you've all seen me do this about 100 times, so I'm gonna kind of just get moving on it. So that's both of our old bearings out. Got to go grab the new ones, clean this tool up, go grab the other tool, and we'll be right back. All right, ready to go. So I'm gonna put a little bit of assembly lube into these bores here. And start to get our install tool assembled here. Okay, pop that out of there. And beautiful. All right, so that is our bearings in. So let's go over to the workbench and get our cams, plate, pump, interchain, tensioners, all that good stuff all set up. So about ready to start just doing a quick little disassembly on this, but first I did do a step off camera I want to mention, which is I took the oil pump and cam plate out and all apart and cleaned all that stuff. That's a step you don't want to skip. I'm gonna show you this here. So it's not real dirty. It's a little dirty. That's all that came out of the oil pump. Cam plate didn't really have anything on it, but oil pump had a little bit. You know, I don't know. I always do it. That's whatever that is. It's not going to be in the motor of this bike now, and you'd be okay without doing it, maybe, but only takes about 2 minutes to take it all apart and clean it, so that's what you should do. Anyway, moving on. Going to start disassembling this. So what we need out of here is some of these spacers. We need this chain. Well, that's about it. Not much we're saving from this, but we do have to get it disassembled. So this spacer, there we go, and I'll just come right off. So this is the one that varies in size. This one, well, used to have a marking on it probably, but does not anymore. So we'll measure that and see what size it is. See what size we want to start to go with on the new setup. Maybe this one, maybe something else. And now we want to get these cams out. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the tensioner off the back, and then we'll do a little snap ring on the front. Here's a one. And a two. Got a little bit of wear in that pad, but not much. All right, And I'm gonna flip this back over, and then we've got this external snap ring right here. So I am going to grab that with these pliers and take it off. A little dark over here. A little hard to see. Okay. So got that removed. That is a use once part, so we got a new one to go in. And now I'm just gonna slide these cams out. I don't want to lose this spacer. This washer is the 100 thousandths thick washer. Always the same size, so we'll keep that one for use there again. And this is going to go in our takeoff box. And we got our cams and our chain. Now, what matters here is the chain and the orientation of it. We want to keep it in the same orientation. Now, you've seen earlier videos of mine, you know, you can, on the outside cam chain, or the only cam chain on an M8, but the outside one on a twin cam, you can mark it with a white, paint marker or something like that as you take it off to make sure that it always goes back on the right way. I actually don't really do that much because for the most part, it just sits there down on the table and I know how it came out and it goes back in the same way and the sprockets stay sitting in it for the most part. You take them out to do your spacing, but it's pretty easy not to lose track of the orientation on that one. This one's a different story because what's out, what's in, the suggestion is that when these cams are still in, you can mark one of the links with a white marker, and that way you know that that's the outside because you wouldn't have been able to get to the inside, same way as with the other one. But now that I have it taken apart, there's really not much you can do. I mean, I guess I could mark the outside of it again, but the logic is gone at that point. In any event, what I do is I just leave the cams sitting in the chain. Rather than taking them out right now and getting rid of them, I'm gonna leave this sitting here in the chain. I'm gonna go grab our new cams, I'm gonna get them ready, and I'm gonna take this chain right off the old one and put it right on the new ones. And that way you're never gonna lose track of the orientation because the chain is always gonna be sitting around two cams. So that said, we're mostly done with this little bit of disassembly here. Just gotta make a little room on this little workbench. I'm still getting used to the new shop and trying to figure out where the best place to do everything is. Haven't quite, this is the third different location I've tried for doing this little minor engine stuff. But I don't know, we'll see. Not sure if this will be the permanent location or not. But that said, let me go grab the new pump parts, plate, all that good stuff, and cams, of course, and we'll bring it back over here and get it set up and ready to go in. All right, so we're ready to rock and roll here. S&S plate, used that about 100 times before. And we got a set of fueling 525 cams to go in here. I don't think I mentioned which cams you're running. This is a stock 88. Fueling 525s are awesome. For like just a basic bolt-in cam for an 88-inch motor, they're great. They've make real good low-end power, which is what you need in those small motors. And they work real well with the stock valve train on the later twin cam bikes. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start gooping this up and getting ready to go. So obviously what we gotta do here is the reverse of what we did to get this all apart. We gotta get the cams set up in the chain, get everything all lubed up, and then get them put in here. Washer, snap ring, all that good stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by putting some assembly lube onto the plate first so it's ready to go. It's funny, we do so much M8 stuff now. I actually don't do twin cam cam installs that much anymore. We do maybe more like top ends, like big bore kits and, you know, all the rest of it on the twin cams, because now everybody wants M8 numbers out of a twin cam, so cams aren't gonna get you there, so gotta do something else. So, these ready to go. Obviously, critical step here, and maybe more critical than even any other part of timing on this, getting these timed correctly to one another, because it's very difficult to verify it once it's back in. I mean, there are timing marks on the outside. They're just a little hard to read because they're so far apart from one another. You really want to make sure you get this right, so you don't have to take it all back apart. So in any event, what I'm going to do here is get our chain off of the original cams. All right, and then in the same orientation, I'm going to put it on our new ones. And truthfully, like I said, don't do these as much as we used to anymore. I think I usually do this, lube these up after they're in, so I don't have to deal with this mess. But hey, what are you going to do? All right, off by one tooth. So we want to get this forward, one. All right, and we are in time. Okay, now what we're going to do is slide the cams into the plate, just like so. And I'm going to take our original 100 thousandths washer. Now, normally, the way you'd be able to not put the wrong washer in here is that one of them would be marked with some other number on it, and that's the rear one, but the forward one's always 100, so it doesn't usually say anything on it. I didn't mix them up. I know which one's which, but just for shits and giggles, I'm going to measure both of these and just see what we got. All right. Okay. So that's our 100 thou washer. I'm going to stick that in. And let's measure the other one. Any guesses? I'm going to say it's 120. Hey, look at that. 120. Right on the money. All right, got our new snap ring. Find the sharp edge on the ID, that's this way. So we are going to put this in. Comme ça. Make sure that is seated. It is. And we've got installation, yeah. Definitely wait until this is in here to put the assembly lube on the outside or inside parts of it here. Obviously you gotta lube up the journals that go inside there, but yeah, anyway. Okay. So next step here is to put the new chain tensioner on. Just rest that down. I will reapply the assembly lube onto these lobes here. All right, let's grab some of this. And little torquey torque on there. Okay, that's good. And this is just about ready to go. I'm going to put this aside for the moment, and we're going to get the oil pump lubed up and reassembled, and we're going to get the oil pump installed, and then we'll come back to this guy right here and install that right in front of the oil pump. So let's go. All right, so Okay, so I already had the oil pump sitting here from where I cleaned it on this workbench, so rather than pick all this stuff up and mix it all around and move it, I just brought the camera over here and we're just gonna put this pump together right here. All right, so it's all nice and clean. We've got all our pieces here. I'm gonna start with the inside. So I think we'll probably time lapse this. Okay, so oil pump is all assembled and ready to go. We've got any number of choices of O-rings to use here because all these S&S parts all came with a whole bunch of duplicates of the same thing. But any event, we're gonna go over to the bike and get this O-ring lubed up, get it put in the case, and then we're gonna get this oil pump aligned and get it slid in there. All right, so we've got our O-ring in there. Everything's all lubed up. We've got the pinion shaft lubed, cam bearings are lubed. Didn't put these cam plate O-rings in yet because I don't want them to fall out while we're working on this and me not notice it. So last thing I'm gonna do here is actually, yeah, let's do this now. I'm gonna put a good amount of assembly lube on our pickup. And then I'm gonna grab my handy dandy oil pump alignment tool. Oh, I'm not even on camera. Sorry about that. Let's stand up. And get these rotors aligned. Come on. There we go. All right, boom. All right, so I actually did not get this lined back up, which is kind of funny. There we go. There we go. All right, I think I'm probably gonna wind up blocking the camera when I do this, but you're just gonna have to bear with me. All right, so that's gonna be something like that. Let's get this all turned around. Something like that. I do say so. All right. Let's turn this back just a hair. In. Almost in. Making sure we didn't lose our O-ring. That popped in really nicely. So let's just wiggle. There we go. And we're in. So I probably have said this before, and I know I've shown it in a couple of times. That's not hard to put that in. Let's start with that, right? Get your things aligned and everything slides in. Sometimes it can give you a little bit of trouble. You know, the O-rings are really tight fit. You don't have everything quite aligned, but if you get your stuff aligned with the alignment tool, and then just have the ability to just rock that camshaft or the pinion shaft a little bit, it'll all just fall into place. That's how she goes. So, all right, just double check that we're seated here, and that feels really good. So one thing we can do here is we can check with a straight edge to make sure that the oil pump is not sticking past here. You can actually feel it. I mean, you don't even need a straight edge, to be honest with you. Like, it sits so far back in there. I don't know. It's not, I mean, I'm not saying like an inch or a half an inch. I'm saying it's noticeable. Anyway, oil pump's in, so let's make sure we're ready to go with the cam plate assembly, and we'll get that put in too. Might as well go ahead and put these O-rings in now so we don't forget. Okay, so all lubricated here, all ready to go. This did have some assembly lube on it. I'm just gonna add a little bit more. Can't hurt. And then we just slide her in. We just slide her in. There we go. There we go. Boom. That's that. We're done. Just kidding. Okay, so with this now sort of in here loose, we're gonna start getting our hardware done. Now, I've gone through this a whole bunch of times before about the sequences and all the stuff you gotta do, but hey, we're here, you're here. Let's make it happen. Let's grab some hardware and get this thing set down so we can start finishing up the rest of it. Okay, so I've got our hardware all ready to go, so we're gonna start doing this, and we're gonna follow all our sequences, and I'll kind of walk you through it, just like always. So first thing I'm gonna do is start the oil pump screws loosely. I do not use Loctite on these. I use ARP Moly Lube. Be nice if these were stainless screws that come with this, but they're not. Even still, I mean, if it was stainless, you definitely wanna use the Moly Lube, but even with the regular ones, I don't want to use Loctite here on the oil pump screws. I do use them on the cam support plate screws, but I don't like the idea of Loctite going in there. That oil pump's all separate. You don't want any Loctite seeping, you know, between those oil pump halves or anything like that. That's just not anything you want, any of that shit getting inside the motor. So just stick with this. I don't think it needs Loctite anyway. So just kind of get those started. I'm not even snug them down. Just have them in there, loose. So then what I'm gonna do is get the cam plate screws started in here. Okay. So what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna start with the sequence of everything. So basically we're gonna do the cam plate, and then we're gonna do the oil pump. So oil pump critically, but cam plate also, you know, there is some ability for it to move theoretically. I mean, you're not gonna feel it. I mean, if you do, stop. But there is some alignment to this as well. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start by, actually, let me get my little ratchet. I'm just gonna start by just hand tightening all of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I'm not tightening them at all. I'm just kind of bottoming them out, if you will. All right, do that. Now, I'm gonna spin the rear wheel a little bit to move this around. Something worth noting, there's no oil in here. We drained it all out. You don't wanna do this with oil in it because oil will start pushing through the galleries, and it can actually pull the cam plate off the motor and create a space in there, and you don't want that. All right, so we're just gonna spin this around a little bit. The idea is just to get the pinion shaft centered, but it's really not super critical on the cam plate. It's critical that it's centered, but there's not as much or any play in it. So what we want to do now is just kind of go from bottomed out just to snug while this is moving. All right, so let's put that back to 12 o'clock. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is tighten down all the cam support plate screws to 110 inch-pounds. Okay, so there is our cam support plate. So now what we want to do is get the oil pump done, and this one, very critical to get it centered, those moving pieces in there around the pinion shaft. So there's lots of different versions of the instructions of how to do this. There's any number of ways you could probably get it right. What I'm gonna do in this case, just because it's easy to do it, I'm gonna turn the wheel while I snug these down. Rather than doing tighten, turn it, you can do it that way too. But first, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a couple of turns. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm gonna try and keep turning it while I snug these down. Okay, turn a little bit more after 1 and 2. And keep going. Okay, so everybody's snugged. Just turn a little bit more. Just make sure we got no binding, no nonsense. All right, and now these I'm gonna step torque and I'm just gonna kind of check them as we go along. So I'm gonna do these first to about 60. 1 and 2. That one's already a little tighter than that. That's all right. Spin. Good. Let's go to about 60 on those. That's already there. It's already there too. Okay. So let's go a little bit more. Go to 90. Okay, spin. Good. Let's go to 90. All right. And now we're going to do all 4 to our final at 110. Okay. Spin her around. No binding, no tight spots, no nothing. Good to go. All right, so that's our hardware done. Now what we got to do is see about getting our sprockets aligned and then final installed. So let me clean up a little bit of the junk we got here, grab the other parts, and we'll keep rolling. Okay, so we are ready to go with getting the spacing on the sprockets figured out. So this is the original 120,000th spacer that came out. I'm gonna put that in to be the first one we're gonna try. And then we'll go ahead and put our sprockets on with no chain. All right, now. Yeah, that feels good. I was a little concerned that it was hard to turn this by hand. It's sometimes, you know, with all the assembly lube and it's a pretty tight fit anyway. But once the sprocket's on there, this feels really nice. So anyway, it's a good gut check there. All right, so we're gonna get those put on. I'm gonna get them tightened down and we will check the offset and see where we're at. So, with those in place, now what we're gonna do is put a straight edge across here and we're gonna check our offset between our 2 sprockets and make sure that we are within spec, which is gonna be 10 thousandths. So, I'm gonna grab the straight edge and some feeler gauges and we'll see where we're at. Okay, all right, so here we go. I'm gonna start checking. This actually looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. Well, I think that might be the one. Let's see. This is an 8/1000 feeler gauge right here. You just sort of, there we go. Nah, I can barely even see any daylight through there. Nope. We're good. Definitely don't need to change that. So let me get rid of this stuff. We'll take this stuff off again and put the chain back on, get everything Loctited and lubricated, and we'll get this thing buttoned up. Okay, now for what it's worth, you're gonna obviously align the timing marks when you put it into the chain, and that's what's gonna keep them in time. However, from here, it makes your life a little easier if you get the timing marks in line now, so that when you go to put this on, you know it's already in line. So just a little step there, no big deal. All right, so our spacer came off with the sprocket there. So I'm just gonna make a little room here, put some juice back there, put some juice on here on both sides, throw that in. Okay, got that. And just a little more lube on pinion shaft, cause why not, right? Right. All right, so I'm gonna grab my chain, throw these in. All right, it's gonna be a little hard to see for the camera, but I'm gonna do my best. So I got my timing mark pointed down there, got it pointed up here, boom, in time. Now, I'm just gonna hold that tight so it can't move. Just throw a little assembly lube on the back of here, cause why not? And then I'm gonna start on the cam and then just feed the other one on and boom. In time, aligned, ready to go. Now, let me grab our red Loctite, which I definitely put away. All right, so now we're gonna get the hardware installed for our two sprockets here. So we're gonna do a little sandwich here. We're gonna do assembly lube on the flange and on the washer. We're gonna do this the same on both setups here. And then we're gonna do red Loctite on the threads. Obviously, you don't want to mix these two things together, even though they look the same. They are very different. All right, so there's one. And assembly lube on the flange. Assembly lube on the washer. And Loctite on the threads. Okay. Beauty. Beauty. So we put these in and we're going to torque these down. So the cam sprocket's going to go to 34 pounds and the pinion shaft sprocket is going to go to 24 pounds. Ask me how I know. All So those timing marks aligned, our locking tool will slide right in. So let's get this back over to foot-pounds. Let's go to 24. Okay. Move up to the top. $34. And lock out. We are golden. All right, our last little detail here is going to be to, obviously we got to lubricate our chain still, but we got to put the outer chain tensioner on. So let me grab that, get that guy ready to go. I'll throw some lube on here, start off with. Okay, and chain tensioner. Okay. Give her the old spin around a couple of times here. Make sure everything is moving the way it should. Feels pretty nice to me. All right. Okay, cool. All right, so that's basically it for this part right here. Obviously now what we got to do is just keep working our way up, and the next thing we're going to do is get working on our lifters and tappet block covers, and we'll get all that stuff done, and then we'll just keep moving up to the top end and get everything put back together. Right now I'm going to clean up, and then we'll reset and keep going.